Let's go, Ridernation.
I'm ready. I'm ready. Yeah, here we go. It's a feeling now. Get 'em high, get 'em low, 'cause we're dealing now. Everybody's giving it all they got, 'cause we're ready.
This is the Piffles Podcast, your Saskatchewan Roughriders fan podcast. And as you can tell, I'm so much happier this week. It's amazing what a good football game will do to you. And seeing your team win, that more than anything, that's I feel like that's the whole vibe in Rider Nation right now. As Riders beating the Stamps on the weekend on Friday night, it's just the weight lifted off the shoulders. Everything tastes better. Everything smells better, except Steve. I had to room with him. I know all about that. But everything's just better when the Riders win.
Shrapnel already. Come on. Too
Early for pre-show, Steve. Come on.
Just getting it out of the way right now. But everything's so much better after a Rider win, and we're going to talk plenty about that game. This is your Saskatchewan Roughriders fan podcast. Thanks for listening to us wherever you get your favorite podcasts, watching on YouTube or SAS Telemax TV on demand. Thank you very much. We appreciate that. Piffles Podcast is brought to you by our great friends at Dairy Queen on Elphinstone Street and Sass Drive in Regina. You can give us a follow on X at Piffles Pod. You can see, if you're watching, where you can follow us. You know the spiel. But I'll let Greg say his part because it's in the contract. He has to say it.
I do not need nor want your pity follows at Greg on Sports.
Yeah, that's right. And also give us a follow on or a like on Facebook as well, too. And you're going to want that because we have contests going. More about that in a few minutes. So as long as you're following us on socials, you'll have the ins to a great prize. So get on that if you're not doing that already. But gentlemen, let's get to it. Let's talk some football here. Let's get to the opening kickoff. So the Riders go into Cowtown last week in a must-win game. Jeff Fairholm, of course, tells us that it was a must-win game, and I think we all agreed with that. And it didn't start out so well. Right off the bat, Tommy Stevens takes a quarterback sneak around the edge, gone 69 yards for a touchdown.
Nice.
I was waiting for that. Steve and I were at the game. We decided to surprise our friends in Calgary by going to the game. The vibe for us in the section where we were was, oh no, already? Here we go again. Great. What was that like for you, Greg, watching that on TV?
I'm pretty sure you guys heard me in the distance because you guys heard what just happened before the show when I had a drink explode on me. It was basically the same exclamation. And then, yeah, it was just ridiculous. The Riders have been so good in those short yardage situations. It just blew me away that play went for 69 yards. It was like, oh no, here we go. Like everyone was fairly confident going into this game. But the funny thing is, even after that, I wasn't that concerned. Like when they came back and basically answered right away, it was like, okay, maybe they needed that slap to wake up.
My moment of concern went from the moment that play ended and they scored the touchdown until the doink on the point after. And I just had that feeling, and I mentioned it with Jeff on the show last week. We've just been waiting for those bounces. We've just needed one or two bounces to go our way, and it felt like finally something was going to go our way. Because Rennie Paredes doesn't miss a lot of kicks, and to see him, doink one right off the bat, suddenly I felt a whole lot better about the game.
Yes, you did. You were laughing quite heartedly at that. I don't know how much you remember of the game. Bits and pieces might be gone from my memory of that game. But I distinctly remember you laughing very, very loudly when that extra point went off the post.
You guys rang
Just-
those phones though.
Oh, did we
Oh,
ever?
did we
Oh,
ever?
that atmosphere in Calgary, honestly, they announced the crowd at, what was it, 24,000? There was not 24,000 people there.
No,
Not a
there's
chance.
no way. I could tell you there
Um,
wasn't, but just by looking at the stands and from the TV.
It was dress as a seat night for all those from the 20 yards in. But the vibe at that game was excellent. Gove, owner of RiderFans.com, we sat with him and his group, and he was beside us. He was the one that was starting the "we have a new total, ring those phones" chants after every Rider point, and we were just right there with him. And we kept going higher and higher and higher.
Such a Saskatchewan chant.
Oh yeah, there's Stamps fans that were a few rows in front of us. Like, what are you guys doing? And of course, everybody around us, the 100 people in our section, they knew what we were doing.
Where are we going? Higher.
Could you hear that chant on on TV on the broadcast?
No, I saw
Damn.
someone posted a video of it. I'm like, that is such a Saskatchewan thing to do.
And every single person in green in our vicinity knew it and went right along with it. You could see it from the first moment. It was fantastic.
But that was a great atmosphere. Usually these games against the Stamps, the atmosphere can be a lot of tension in there between the fan bases. There was nothing like that this time. It was really, really chill. It was good. It was fun. A little bit different than I'm used to in Calgary. So, but I liked it. It's good. But Greg, you hit it right off the bat there. Not worried about the game going forward. When the Riders responded back, getting that touchdown drive immediately after, chunk play after chunk play after chunk play, marching the ball down the field. And at that point, it wasn't even Ryquell Armstead running the ball. It was those chunk pass plays to Keyshawn Johnson, to KSP, moving the ball. Trevor Harris was fantastic on that first drive and resulted in that touchdown. So for them to respond back was a huge, huge deal, because if they would have gone 2 and out, not saying that the game would have been any different, but it very well could have been. So just to get the mindset back, especially coming out after a bye week, right? We're expecting them to come out flying, and they give up this big long touchdown. That can be so deflating. They didn't let that happen to them. And to me, that's just great coaching.
I look at it like a fight. Like you take their first punch and you go, okay, if you can respond and lock in, you're fine. If you all of a sudden you're now seeing ghosts and dodging everything, the fight can go away on you in a hurry. And they were ready to start throwing. Like yeah, Harris looked great. This is probably the best I've seen KSB look in a long time.
He was excellent.
And part of that is injury related, obviously, but like when he caught that one later in the game, right at the goal line there, and he took those 2 shots back to back, he not once did he even bobble the ball. He made sure he had it protected. He cushioned the hit, and that was an easy touchdown for him. Like it's you can tell he's back at 100%.
And honestly, you mentioned it. Trevor Harris looked probably as good as I think he's looked in Ryder Green. And if I remember correctly, was it Rob Vanstone said he had the record this game for completion percentage for quarterbacks who've thrown more than 18 or more passes. It was 16 of 18 for over
248.
Was it 240? Yeah, 248, and a handful of touchdowns to go with it. He was money, and he had a Ryder record and wasn't even the best player on the field for that 60 minutes.
Oh, well, and we may as well talk about it right now. My new favorite radio station is Rock 207 because my lord, with weather and traffic on the ones, because what I tweeted out that night, like, thank God Ottawa doesn't believe in second chances. I don't know why he fell out of favor with that locker room, and I hope it doesn't follow him here. But that man has a second gear. Like, Hickson was running well, but Armstead has that second gear like this. He went from first to second before he even got to the second level and just left guys in his dust. Like, so good.
He ran for another 30 yards while you were talking. Yeah. Just nonstop. Every time he touched the ball, it felt like he was a threat. And I don't remember a running back like that since, honestly, Corey Sheets
Corey Sheets.
was the last time you felt like a guy could break one at any moment. And outside of that one play where he looked like he was carrying a 6-pack of beer instead of a football,
A loaf of bread. That's what I called
he
it.
was fantastic. Like I don't think I've ever seen it. You can't, like, he had his arm out to his side. And he was just running like he had no cares in the world on that. But he recovered it himself, so we won't fault him too much. But the 270 yards more than makes up for that one oops.
Well, it's funny because you guys didn't see it, but they got Harris after the game, and he basically said, "I can't remember winning a game and throwing less passes," because he didn't need to. Because that offensive line, like, my God, they were plowing the field that game.
This offensive line, and we're going to talk about this when we talk about the upcoming Ottawa game. They have been unbelievable this year. The last 5 games, they've given up 5 sacks, which, yeah, you'd like that number maybe around 2 or 3, maybe in a perfect world. But when you're on your 13th, 12th, or 13th offensive lineman, that's pretty damn good. And it's not just that it was Ryquell Armstead making things happen out of nothing and going full Barry Sanders. These were huge, huge holes at this offensive line, especially on the right side with Nick Jones and Trayvon Tate. I could have ran for 100 yards. Well, probably not, but like they were making it really, really easy on Ryquell Armstead, and they're not going to get enough praise, this offensive line, and neither is Edwin Harrison. And I've wrote an article about it on pifflespodcast.com. We've talked about it on the show. He is not going to get the respect he deserves, but when it comes down to coach of the year, I know it's a head coach's award. That's the coach of the year. What that guy has done with essentially, I don't want to say nothing, but with what he's done, with what he's had and the injuries and just the amount of changes that this team has had on the offensive line, it's unbelievable.
And why can't the CFL have a assistant coach of the year or like the NCAA does? Like, why can't there be? Like, yeah, you can still have a head coach of the year, and yes, it's going to be one of your Grey Cup coaches because that's the way it always is. But why can't you have a positional coaching award? Because, like, this dude deserves it with everything he's gone through, and the fact that line hasn't looked like Swiss cheese, it just is beyond me.
And imagine how good they looked, and now they're starting to get guys back. What do you even do with that offensive line? And I know we'll talk about this a little bit later, but you can't move anybody after a 207-yard rushing performance, and yet guys are getting healthy, and they're going to take over on the line. It's an interesting and good problem to have, but I'm liking the consistency right now.
I with Brammer coming back, I don't think you make any change. If Godber comes back, I think you need to put him back in the middle. But other than that, there's nothing you're going to change because that line has been phenomenal.
4th most rushing yards in Rider history for Rock Armstead. Most in a debut as well, too. So just an unbelievable game for him. Just missing that touchdown, at least from a fantasy football standpoint, just missing that tutty. And going back to Trevor Harris, obviously the efficiency, 16 of 18, 248 yards. Chunk plays, that's what that tells me. Usually you're looking at about 10, 12 yards a completion is about average, right? You would think maybe he might hit 200 yards with 16 completions, maybe. 248, that's a lot of chunk plays, and a lot of them were to Keyshawn Johnson. He had another strong showing this game. But I want to talk about that drive at the end of the first half by Trevor Harris. With time ticking down, we were hoping, honestly, just for a field goal. Just get in field goal range, If you can do that, you have this lead at the half. Okay, good. That's a great first half, especially on the road, even though it's against the worst team in the league. Still, that's very, very good. Manage the clock so well, running the ball himself as well, too, and then getting the touchdown to end it was just it was icing on the first half cake.
I think Mace was doing Harris a solid because they already gave Patterson 2 touchdowns before that.
Yeah.
I don't think they really had time to get Patterson in for that
No,
that
they
short
had-
yardage. There was 6 seconds left when we ended the play before.
Yeah.
And I love the guts to go for it there. Some coaches would take that step back, take the points, but they didn't even hesitate and got that extra touchdown. And it ended up being the difference maker. The way Calgary came out in the second half, that touchdown could be the difference between how we are approaching this entire game and on this podcast.
Flipping over to the other side of the ball, though, no Roland Milligan in this game. Obviously, he was back at home, birth of a child, so had to do the right thing, right?
Want to know something very weird? They didn't say why on the TSN broadcast.
Probably because they didn't look it up.
It was just like, and Roland Milligan is out for some reason due to personal reasons, and I'm like, he had a daughter. Just say he had a child. It's public knowledge.
Yeah.
Like it made it sound like it was something like just bad. I'm like, okay, this is really odd.
That would mean that they'd have to get away from their 1 or 2 storylines that they practice for a week. And that's not something TSN's going to do. So that's probably why.
By the way, I already know I'm probably going on a mini rant when we talk about this upcoming game because I know what their storyline is going to be all game.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we'll have time to talk about that. But without Roland Milligan, I thought the secondary, well, in the first half, the defense was great. Second half, Calgary made adjustments, made some smart reads. But there was no real big play against this defense, which is kind of the Achilles heel, I guess. The last little bit is when they're playing well, there's a 30-yard, 40-yard play down the middle of the field. We didn't really see that this game, which was good. The D-line was getting decent pressure on Mayer pretty much the whole game. Mayer actually did a really good job of bouncing around and getting away from that pressure to make things happen, especially in the second half. So kudos to him for that.
The nicest thing you've ever said about Jake Mayer.
That's probably the only nicest thing I'll ever say about Jake Mayer. So
now say something nice about Chris Drevler.
He's such a nice guy. What a good guy. He's just.
See, I don't have any like nemesis. Sure, we'll go with that.
The entire Bomber fan base is
Look
your
over
nemesis.
your shoulder.
I meant as a
Greg.
player.
Don't give me this garbage. You don't have a nemesis.
Hey, bet on yourself. He inspires me to bet on myself.
I've heard of your block list. You have a lot of nemesis. Nemesi?
Nemesis, I think
Most,
it is.
most of them are Bombers fans.
Oh yeah.
But that defense, pass rush, especially at the end, Baldonado made a great play getting to Mayer quick, forcing that early throw to the interception by Jameer Thurman. Baldonado, I thought, had a really, really solid game. His stats aren't going to jump out at you, but it was little things like that make a big play happen. And you're going to see that on, like, the guys will see that on film. And it's just little things like that just make players stand out to me. And I thought he had a fantastic game because of stuff like that.
He's stringing up a couple games together. Like Baldonado is definitely not only being part of the Great Name Club, is also playing really, really well. And it's also good to see, though, this international player, a global player, is working his way, not just being another spot on the bench. Like, I am glad we found one that can obviously play.
And our punter's not that bad either.
Yeah, that's not a kicker.
And special teams, though. Special teams. This was probably their best game in 3 months, probably since the first couple games of the year. Mario Alford wasn't running straight out of bounds every single time. He was trying to turn it upfield. Like, you could tell that he was making an effort to just go forward. And it was a nice breath of fresh air.
No, I'm not going to pretend we haven't been calling to see him benched for the better part of a month now. This reminded us why he is in the position that he's in. When he plays and plays well, he's a solid performer back there. And he finally was remembering his goal is to run to the other goal line, not back to the bench to his Gatorade.
Oh, here's the problem, though, because the way I see the kick rules happening, he needs to get all the kick returns in he can this year. because I think we're bringing that stupid safe zone kick in next
A
year.
dynamic kickoff.
Yeah.
What a name for it. But anyway, the Riders winning 37-29, moving the record to 6-7-1, 1 point back of BC for second place. And maybe more importantly, is burying Calgary a little bit further down. Edmonton losing to Winnipeg. I mean, we talked about it last week. Who would we rather see win and lose? Probably the best thing for the Riders right now is just for Edmonton to lose and just keep that distance between them for third place. So it was a good week for the Riders based on those results. And in this game, dominated the CFL's honor roll. Just about, it was almost every single pick was Rider awards in this one. Trayvon Tate on the O-line, the entire O-line unit grading out as the best. Trevor Harris was the best quarterback. Mario Alford was the best returner. Obviously, Ryquell Armstead. Kean Schaefer-Baker for receivers. Jameer Thurman on defense. This was just big-time players making big-time plays. And we're going to need that down the stretch here. It's going to be like, we're going to need some guys to step up and play at an all-star level. As good as things kind of have been for some units and some players on this team, we're going to need guys just to elevate just that much more in these final 4 games to push for the playoffs.
On that say, like, yes, it was Calgary, and Lord knows I'm enjoying this season. This might be the season. This might be the season of 2 decades, guys. Like, I'm trying not to get ahead of myself, but it might actually happen. But it showed what this team can do. They just need to do it consistently, and they've got a good shot against a very good Ottawa team this week. So we'll see what happens.
A very good but very injured Ottawa team coming into Mosaic Stadium this weekend. We could effectively see Calgary not officially eliminated, but effectively eliminated if the Riders win on Saturday night. They'd be 6 points ahead with 4 games to go. Although we look back to last year, and
I was gonna say, let's not talk about last year.
We're not going to do the dance until they officially have that X beside their name the E beside their name that says they're eliminated.
But we got our win after Labor Day.
And what a change it makes in the psyche of Ridernation. If you went around a week ago, the season was over. All of a sudden, we beat the worst team in professional football right now, and we are Grey Cup contenders again. But it's how we did it. We played 60 minutes of football. You know, maybe not all of it defensively, but they played solid football for all 3 phases at points in that game. But the attitude in Ridernation is back, and it's really fun to see. You said it off the top of the show. Just keep it going.
Now, it wasn't all sunshine and lollipops, all that stuff in that game. Injuries, again, continue to hit this team. A Joe with a non-contact injury. Not really sure. We haven't gotten a full update from the team on what that is yet as of Tuesday evening. But didn't look good. Usually when it's a non-contact injury and it's a knee or leg injury, he's done for the year. So I'm not going to say that he is, but generally speaking, that's usually what it is. So,
considering they brought in another Canadian receiver today, that kind of gives you a good hint that he's probably done for the foreseeable future.
Yeah, so they signed Colton Hunchak, who has spent the last 4 years with the Calgary Stampeders. Not going to expect much out of him. If he can come in and play special teams and just block, honestly, kind of what a Joe was doing, not really running routes, but just in the blocking department. If he can come in and do that, then that's all we really need out of him. But it's KSB Emelis and Dell Duncan Busby might be starting this week. So they just need another body behind them.
Harris went direct to Busby his first couple plays in. And Busby didn't look like that out of place. Like we forget Dell that's her Dell Duncan Busby. Jeez, that's
There you go. Yep.
The bus. He got drafted ahead of Ajoa Joe.
Yeah.
Ajoa Joe played his way, and injury also didn't help Duncan Busby. So, like, we don't know what he can do yet. Like, bad for Ajoa Joe, but this could be where Duncan Busby makes a name for himself.
All right. Well, and then one more roster note for the Riders here, releasing an offensive lineman, Tariq Stewart, one of the guys that was brought in. I think he was with the guy that was with Edmonton early in the year. But anyway, with Jacob Brammer coming back, you're going to have to lose an alignment somewhere. So that's what that is.
Should we pull out his highlight tape?
And we're done.
Yep.
Yeah.
Hashtag wants a rider. Well,
we'll talk about his Plaza induction in a few years.
Hey, he doesn't get in until my man Dennis Guile gets in. Okay. Off the field though, some really cool stuff. The CFL and all the teams released the indigenous logos. All the teams.
I'm sorry for that intern's morning I ruined.
Yeah. Looks like they were testing it on their website for the little game tracker score bug at the top of the CFL.ca website. And Greg found that out. And
I jumped the gun on them, and they got taken down really fast. And then also all the announcements came out very quickly after that.
But the Riders won, designed by Chris Chupak of the Red Pheasant Cree Nation. I love this logo, and it's on our website. It's on our socials. You've seen it around. I think it's absolutely beautiful. It's the best of the 9 teams. I really like Toronto's, honestly, and Winnipeg's being a star blanket. But I really, really love this Riders logo, and I want to get your guys' take. Greg, you're the logo snob. So I'm curious about your take on this logo, because I really like it.
I like it too. There's 2 ways you can go with this, and it's very interesting on the way different teams did it. Like BC and Hamilton, they went very full indigenous art, like very deep in the style. The Bombers, the Riders, the Argos took their logo and modified, and to a lesser extent the Alouettes, who it's not my favorite, let's put it that way. But they took their logo and then accentuated it with the indigenous art. I like it. I really the Riders one. I love it too. It's very nice. I've seen a few people call it for the full-time logo. It's very busy from afar. Like as a one-time, once a year. Yes, sell merch with it, raise all the money you can off of it. But I'm very curious on how it's going to look on TV. As a static piece of art, looks great, but I think it's going to get washed out on TV, and that's just my opinion.
I love the entire plan behind all of these and the way that they released them, and obviously when they released them, with it being Truth and Reconciliation Day coming up. I'm a huge fan of Edmonton's. I think the design as a whole was just, I don't know the right word for it, but it's just very aesthetically pleasing to me. I just like the style to it.
Yeah, I meant to mention them. They combined the two. They took very indigenous style, but they went iconic like a logo should be. And yeah, they went above and beyond. So I like theirs as well.
But I do appreciate that with the Riders, and I haven't looked into the meanings behind the others, but I liked reading what all of the symbols meant and what they mean to indigenous people. And it's a good way to just learn those things that aren't really taught as much as they used to be anymore. I really enjoyed that aspect of it as well, is that little bit of understanding of some culture.
And honestly, that's what the whole thing's about, right? So, and hoodies, t-shirts, available for pre-order right now. I'm told they'll be at the Rider store on Wednesday or Thursday. So if you're looking to pick one of those up, those would be the days to head down to Mosaic Stadium or to the Rider store and get that. And of course, a lot of people were asking, and it wasn't really announced by the Riders, but a lot of people were asking, well, where's funding going? Because other teams have announced it. We didn't see a Rider announcement on it. The Leader Post got a statement from the Riders saying, all funds raised will go to indigenous programming, including the Northern Saskatchewan Football League, grow the game camps in indigenous communities, and a soon-to-be launched intercity football league. So keeping it football, but also obviously into indigenous communities and everything and programs, which is what it's all about. So it says all funds raised, not just a portion of the proceeds. And to me, that's a big deal. That's a big thing. And it's, in the grand scheme of things, it's kind of a little thing for the Riders to miss out on 20% margin, whatever they want to normally make, which I know they make more than that on their product. I'm being nice here, but to say all funds raised going there is a very, very good thing. So kudos to the team for doing it that way.
That was good. And to make a little social commentary on it, usually when stuff like this gets announced, I always head to the comments, partially because I'm a sadist. I got to admit, it wasn't bad. Like, don't get me wrong, there's their usual mouth breathers there, but it wasn't the typical over the top, ridiculous. Just
people like this logo. People really like
just
this.
moronic, and it was good to see. Like, maybe we're growing as a society, maybe. Maybe I put a big maybe on there. It's doing a lot of heavy lifting.
I wish people who listen to the show could see my face on that one. I think this is just a well-designed and well-put-out piece that allowed people to understand what's meaning before they ranted on it. You have a little more faith in humanity than I do.
Okay, but here's the thing I need to know. In the sheet that the CFL put out, the logo is obsidian green. In the one the Riders put out, it's black. What is it? I need to know, Riders. What colorway are we going with this? The graphics nerds need to know.
I can't help you on that.
On Wednesday or Thursday when they're in the store.
That is true.
Well, we'll see those the logos in action on the field and everything this upcoming Saturday against the REDBLACKS, and we'll talk about that a little bit later in the show. That's the opening kickoff presented by Kathy Festian of Royal LePage Regina Realty. Let's jump to our Churchill Brewing Company odds and end zones. And I want to stick with, it was the Riders Stamps game, right? So I want to stick with the stamps here. And this is something that I've been seeing kind of grow on social media. And hardcore fans of the stamps are starting to tune out because they're frustrated with the team's direction. Now, I don't like it when that happens. You start losing hardcore fans. That's not a good thing. The Riders have lost some hardcore fans. You've seen our season ticket holder base drop. That's not good for business, right? You don't want that. And this team has been trending down lately in a while, which I think a lot of it has to do with Dave Dickinson wearing too many hats. I think just with the coach's cap, a GM head coach, it just doesn't work in the CFL. You almost have to do it if you want to have one extra coach on your roster, but it's so damaging to the product. And we saw that here with Chris Jones, where if he was only focused on one of those jobs instead of both of them, probably could have been better. I think that's the case with Dave Dickinson here. Now, I'm feeling it's really hard to feel bad for the Calgary Stampeders fans because this is one bad year out of the last 20 some. They've made the playoffs 19 straight years. You're getting very little empathy from me because you guys sucked 1 year. The Riders were very, very good for a 10-year period. They had one bad year in 2011. Okay, basically go from 2004, we'll say, 2003, maybe, when they started trending up, to 2014 when Darian Durant got injured. There wasn't many bad years. Like they were that was the best era of Rider football.
Oh yeah,
Ever.
that is the peak of, that's the golden era. As much
Right?
as everyone wants to romanticize the 60s, the 70s, that is the best the Riders have ever been.
But they had one bad year in 2011, which Greg doesn't ever
Didn't
say
exist.
happened.
I'm
Right?
telling you, it doesn't exist. Yeah.
Did anybody feel bad for the Riders then? No. In fact, I think they liked it. So, you know what, Calgary fans? I'm going to take joy in your team sucking this year.
Yes.
I mean, ABC, I've based almost my entire fandom in the CFL based off of ABC over the last 20 some years. So I don't feel bad. Obviously, I want them to be competitive so that their fans are showing up and they sell more tickets and it's good for the league. Obviously, I want that stuff business wise, but let me have this one.
Well, here's the thing though. So the Riders have had bad years. The Bombers have had bad years.
Those were good times.
And those were great times. But like, I remember the Labor Day after the Bombers couldn't score a point. I was talking to Bomber fans in line walking into Taylor Field, and they're like, "We just want to score a point." The fans stuck with the team. The fact remains is there's some Stamps fans that I like and respect, and they're losing their minds, going, "This is garbage. This is like, it's one bad season." And yes, I am going to enjoy every minute of it because Jake Mayer is terrible and you're missing the playoffs. However, suck it up, Buttercup. I'm sorry you had one bad season in 2 decades. It happens. It's football. You're not going to make the playoffs every year. You're not going to win the Grey Cup every year. Get used to it.
In fairness, this is more realistically 2 bad seasons. It was the Riders' ineptitude that allowed that garbage team from last year to sneak into the playoffs. But either way, again, 19 consecutive years of making the playoffs. I feel zero pity for them. I mean, we grew up, we were told that the Bombers were our biggest rivals, but my formative years for this team were the Henry Burris era
Yep.
Calgary Stampeders and going forward. So 2005 and up. We hated the Stampeders.
Oh, yeah.
We showed up to Bombers games. We showed up to Labor Day, but we hated Calgary and Henry Burris and those teams. That's where we learned to hate a football team.
Probably more
they've
fights in the
missed the
stands
playoffs.
during those games than a Bomber game.
Absolutely. And I remember being more pumped for those. I showed up to Labor Day. I brought signs to Calgary games. Now, in fairness, a lot of that was Henry Burris related and one particular sign in general. But, there was
It
more of a
involved a
rivalry
bra.
there. What's that?
Did it involve a bra?
Yes, it did.
That's what I thought.
But there was more rivalry there. So we grew up hating this team. And for 19 years, we've had to watch them in the playoffs. For every single season of this podcast, we have predicted that this is the year they will finally miss the playoffs. We are batting 1,000 this year on that. God helping, or God willing. It's time. And I hope their fans realize that, good times will be ahead. Hopefully it's in a few years and they can enjoy some suffering for a bit like we have for generations. But I can't feel bad for them. I don't want to see them tune out, but I don't have a single ounce of pity, empathy, sadness in my heart for Stampeders fans right now. You've had not an unprecedented era of success. We saw the Edmonton streak of, 32 straight years, but pretty damn close. There are people who can drink today that have never seen Calgary miss the playoffs.
The fact remains, it blows my mind that these are grown adults that understand what pro sports is. And yes, they're fans. And yes, the fan comes from Fanatic, so I kind of understand that. But you're going to have a bad season. And the fact that they're all they're ready to get rid of their season tickets. And don't get me wrong, CSEC is a terrible owner.
Yeah,
for the
there's a
team.
lot more to it than just a bad record.
And I understand that. Like, the stadium's terrible. CSEC, they're the redhead stepchild. The Flames are going to get all the attention. Yes, I understand that. The fact remains, the Flames suck too. So, like, you're used to watching the Flames lose. Just get used to watching the Stampeders lose in a crappy stadium.
No, it's funny, Steve, you said the word generations, and that's what I find really funny about in the locker room for Calgary. Just to kind of wrap it up here, with Reggie Begelton commenting about the generational gap between him and the younger players. And this is a quote that was in 3 Down Nation. I'm a little biased when it comes to what era we're in. We're getting to the entitled era and the participation trophy kids that are coming through. It's tough. We knew grit. We knew the gritty times. We knew smash mouth football when we were growing up, and we didn't get our way. We had to show our worth. That's hard to preach to these young guys. When I first came here, I wanted to play, but I understood that I had to earn that right to play, meaning that if I wanted to get on the field with special teams, I had to take pride in special teams, the proving ground. I truthfully don't think the younger guys understand what that truly means. Now, I actually, there's a lot of truth in that, honestly. I do believe that.
I agree
That
with him on that
said,
one. Yeah.
you're a veteran on the team. Teach them. That is your role as a veteran in the locker room, is show them the right way to do things. But also, if the guy can come in and play right off the bat because he's got the talent to do it, he's going to do it. So you don't have to bide your time. Like, I mean, in the NFL, you don't have to bide your time. Maybe in the CFL, you do a little bit more. But if you're a high round draft pick, you're probably going to get not extra treatment, but you're going to get the benefit of the doubt here.
But also, that comes with team construction, which once again leads to Dave Dickinson, both as a GM and a coach. It is him as the GM to find the players that fit the system that he wants to run, as well as him as the coach to put them in a place to succeed. And a lot of the failures last year, probably unfairly, got put on Mark Mueller, especially on the offense. So that is where the coach of Dave Dickinson needs to take them bowling or something, because that works every time.
And the funny part about his quote is he mentions this gap between the generations of football players, and then he continues on and basically drives a wedge in between them with his words. There's no way that those younger guys that are reading this are going to take that kindly, or suddenly, kumbaya in the locker room together. This is going to make it worse, not better. Those are the things that maybe you say in a closed locker room between teammates, not to a reporter, away from the rest of your teammates. As a leader of his football team, Begelton should have known better, whether his words are true or not. And I don't disagree with them. Those aren't things that you should be making public, because now players are going to be looking at themselves going, is that me? Fans are going to be wondering which players he's talking about. There's nothing good that can come from his words. Nobody's suddenly going to be a show your worth player because of this. In fact, it might end up being the exact opposite.
That's a close the door to the locker room going, we all, and you don't even aim it at the generation. You talk about everybody very generically, going, we all need to step it up. We all need to do this. We all need to do that. That's what leaders do. This is a guy, and usually Begelton doesn't talk. I've never seen Begelton do something like this before, so it's obviously he's frustrated. And he's probably regretting this. So, yeah, you do not unburden yourself to a reporter like this. This is going to have repercussions in that locker room, and probably not good ones.
And honestly, you compare or combine this quote or these quotes with the apparent fighting in the locker room after the game last week.
Yeah.
And that tells me that there is at the very top a coaching issue, that he can't handle this locker room, because they are going at each other. They're not coming together as a team. They are splitting apart into literal groups. with your veterans causing part of the fissure.
You know what this reminds me of? Craig Dickinson's head coaching
Yeah.
stint here.
Yeah,
Oy.
like I said,
What a coincidence.
Yeah.
for 1 year, it looks good on them. I don't mind it. They talked so much stuff when Duron Carter was becoming an issue here, so they can have this one. Do you guys want to have the MOP discussion this week, or should we do that next week?
Let's push up
Because
to next week. I think
Yeah.
because that one's going to go really long. And
there is no mop this year, basically. And no, it should not be Brady Oliveira like everybody's saying it should be. We'll get into that next week. But let's look at this Riders Red Blacks game coming up on Saturday. And if your season ticket holders got the email, the Riders sent one out. This happened earlier in the year. Time change alert. The game's no longer at 2:00. It's at 1:00 because CTV is taking this game as they're doing on Saturday afternoons, and they want that 3 p.m. Eastern time slot. So we have to cater to Ontario, basically.
I just realized I have that in my calendar wrong. Thank you for reminding me.
Yes. So this game is at 1:00. So Steve, the tailgate starts a little bit earlier. So if you were thinking maybe, 11, 12 o'clock, no, it's like 9.
I'm
10 o'clock
literally
now.
coming straight from the Cooperator Center to Conra's hockey until like 12:30. So.
You could park there for free. Perfect. There you go.
There you go.
My lovely wife will start painting around 8 o'clock for a 10 o'clock tailgate. Gonna be a good one.
So yes, and if the weather's anything like it has been this or supposed to be this week, it should be a pretty nice day for football. So 1:00. The game. We'll talk about Ottawa side of things in a minute. Let's get to the Riders here and guys they're bringing back. Anthony Lanier possibly being activated for this game. He was practicing more with the number ones on Tuesday, first day of practice. Dave Thomas, voice of the Riders, putting that out there. So if the Riders can get back Anthony Lanier on the D line, and you can get him, Caleb Sanders, and Micah Johnson, who actually both of them were limited with back injuries on day one. But if you can get a good solid rotation of those three guys in the middle, and you have Baldonado, Corte Moore, Cox Jr. On the outside, and you can get the rotation there as well, you're just going to keep these guys healthier and healthier and ready to go for later in the game, which against Calgary, the run defense wasn't that good. Calgary everybody on their team averaged almost 8 yards a carry. So that needs to be dealt with.
Most of that was in the second half.
Yeah.
Except Tommy Stevens, who averaged 69 yards a carry.
69 yards.
They never went
nice.
back to him after a 69-yard run. But I digress.
But
Great coaching.
They got to get that figured out a little bit. Because, run defense has been excellent all year, except for the Edmonton game, the one Edmonton game. But that's not something we want to see slip a little bit here. So I think getting Lanier back, hopefully this week, is going to be a big thing, and getting more pressure on the quarterback. The more pressure you can get on the quarterback anytime, it doesn't matter who it is, the better.
I got fears about that, and we're going to talk about it.
Okay, well, we'll just talk O-line here just a little bit. Possibly a change on the O-line with Jacob Brammer. He was working at right guard with the ones. Possibly back this week, taking the place of Nick Jones.
I don't like that.
You don't like it?
I like Brammer.
Going, right?
I like Brammer, but Nick Jones was literally making holes you could drive an Oldsmobile through against Calgary. Like I don't get me wrong. I like Brammer. I think he deserves a spot in this team, but it's very hard for me to say take Nick Jones out after last game.
There's the old, you don't lose your spot to injury, but when a guy like Nick Jones goes out and you have a 200-plus yard rusher, and a lot of that because of Nick Jones's run blocking, I don't know what this says to a guy like that. Like, how do you keep your job if you're sat down after a performance like that?
Drew Bledsoe has entered the chat.
And we've said it. They've played well as a unit. They've given up 5 sacks over the last 5 games, which, let's be honest, over the last 5 years, we would take those numbers 100% of the time. I don't know if I like it, but I do like Brammer. He showed out real well in his limited opportunities. Great O lineman. Just I'm not sure about the message that it sends to that line and that unit.
If it wasn't after a 200-yard game, like I said, I'd probably go, yeah, Brammer doesn't deserve to lose the spot. But and like I said, if you are going to make a change, it's if Godber's ready to go, you put Godber in, you move Ferland back outside, back over. Changing out the Americans right now, I don't think it's needed. I really don't.
And who says Jeremy O'Day doesn't know how to recruit O linemen?
Me several times, because like I said, he couldn't recognize an offensive lineman unless it was in a mirror.
Problem is this year he did too many of them.
Yeah,
and very well.
Yeah,
that O-line just shattered by injuries. Corey Mace, well, obviously he makes the final decision. He loved, and he talked about it, how he loved what Jacob Brammer did earlier in the year. So I think he brings a little bit more of a mean nasty to him. Not over the edge by any means, but I'm with you guys. I don't know how you can go away from Nick Jones right now when, yeah, the first game that he played, there was, a couple issues and protection issues, but he's been rock solid over the last few games. And with who we have available for Canadian O-linemen, this is a 3 American O-lineman unit right now with Trevor Reed on the left, Trayvon Tate on the right, who's been excellent at right tackle.
Oh, so good.
And Nick Jones here at right guard. I'm with you guys. I don't know if I would bring Brammer back. I really wouldn't.
And Mace is not wrong. Brammer played very, very well. It's a good problem to have. It's a very good problem to have. Still a problem, but it's a good problem to have.
Definitely a problem we would have taken at any point over the last couple of seasons. Oh no, we have to sit a talented O lineman because our other talented O lineman is healthy again.
Yeah.
Okay, well, the elephant in the room. We'll get to it. Jeremiah Masoli starting at quarterback for Ottawa. First game back in Saskatchewan since the Garrett Marino incident.
Really? I didn't know that.
Oh, don't worry. I'm assuming that Glenn Suter's doing this game. He'll tell you. He'll tell you many times. The montage is probably made already by TSN. You're going to see it plenty of times. It's going to be annoying AF. Thank goodness I don't rewatch home games just to see their storylines and all that, because I would probably throw my remote through the TV.
They're going to cut out the Mutant League or the Marino hit and replace it with a shot from Mutant League football with a bone snap and all that, just to make it seem that much worse.
A Mortal Kombat fatality for Mortal Kombat 1. Like, and I joked about it. I joked about it the minute I saw Mazzoli was starting. I'm like, poor Miles Brown. If he sneezes in Mazzoli's direction, that's all we're going to hear about. Because between Suter, between the officials, like, if he even touches Mazzoli and someone thinks, oh, that hand was too close to his face, we're never going to hear the end of it. Like, I feel bad for Miles Brown. Nothing he's going to do this week is going to be good.
There's going to be so many ridiculous GoFundMes next week.
I was hoping that it would be Drew Brown starting, but obviously with the ankle injury he has, the Riders' defense was excellent against Drew Brown in Ottawa earlier this year, and they only suffered that game when it was Dustin Crum that came in. So a little bit more of a mobile quarterback. That's what Jeremiah Masoli is. He's not as mobile as he used to be. He's not that same running quarterback, but he's a vet. And if there's anybody on that Ottawa roster that can exploit a soft zone defense, it's going to be Masoli. So that's the part of the game that worries me. It's not so much the whole Miles Brown if he gets too close to him. Although I do think that's a very real thing. The refs are going to be focused even more on that than they
It's
have
going to be
been.
dumb. It's going to be dumb.
So at least it's a home game, I guess, for Miles Brown in that sense. You won't have, what we saw at the Banjo Bowl between their fans and the cameras and all that stuff just going off on them. But it's still going to be a thing. So, but the whole comparing him to Garrett Marino and how that's going to be a storyline is absolute garbage to me. Not even remotely the same thing. And that's the part.
Not even close.
That's the part that pisses me off. Is Miles Brown hasn't been doing dirty things. He's gotten there. One of the Monday Night Football games. I think it was one of the Monday Night Football games. Quarterback got hit low.
Yep.
Wasn't called because the rush end was getting tackled by the offensive lineman into the quarterback. That was common sense. The NFL referees used common sense to decide, you know what? He was being blocked into him. There was nothing he could have done. Not a penalty. That's what I wish would have happened here multiple times to Miles Brown. Just dumb luck, honestly, of him getting blocked, chop blocked, or, pushed into Chris Streveler, whatever. Dumb luck. And this guy's being made out to be as bad as Garrett Marino. Give me a break. That's ridiculous.
But here's the problem though. Even if the Streveler thing got flagged and it was a bad call in the moment, those happen. The fact remains is the league waited for some reason 2 weeks and fined him a maximum fine. They have the replay. They have every angle to make that call, and they still fined him for that hit. That is my problem with that Streveler hit.
So it'll be interesting to see how aggressive Miles Brown is in this game at getting to the quarterback, because you know that they're talking to him about this. Corey Mace is pulling him aside and saying, look, they're going to be targeting you for this reason. So I'm curious to see how, again, aggressive he is at going after the quarterback. Like, you don't want to change your game up because his game has been excellent. But when the refs are specifically looking at you and not anybody else, you probably have to change a little bit, right? So I'm interested to see how that plays out.
So help me God if Mazzoli goes down this game.
Oh my God.
Like, even if it's not Brown. Even if it's not Brown.
Yeah.
If it's Brown, we're talking like apocalypse.
Yep.
But like, this game is going to be a gong show. No matter what happens, any hit on Mazzoli is going to be overanalyzed by TSN, by the officials, by every fan that does not wear green. It's going to be ridiculous.
Should be fun.
Will be wild.
But also in this game, Ryquell Armstead against his old team, who just turfed him a couple weeks ago, and he's coming off that 207 yards. So what does he have in store for an encore? In the first game against Calgary, he was like, okay, got to show you why, or got to show them that they made a bad decision by cutting me. And now you're going up against him right away. If you thought he was running hard then, he's going to be, I don't want to say trying to just run guys over this game and getting contact, but he's going to be running with a purpose this game. So
go ahead. I think you and I are actually on the same wavelength on this one.
My only concern.
We both started with my only concern. Yeah.
My only concern is Ottawa knows his weaknesses and knows what it takes to get under his skin. And I hoped that he doesn't fall for them pushing those buttons that they watched other teams push on him that led to his eventual exit out the door. That is a legitimate concern. He has shown that he is hot-headed on the field, and they know his weakness. I hope the Riders' leadership and veterans kind of keep him even keeled on the sidelines, going, show it between the whistles. As soon as that whistle goes, come back to the huddle. We got you.
And actually, to play off of that, you could see the other teams also know the playbook, because early in the game, I don't know if you guys saw it, he took a late shot when he was on the ground, and he actually got in the defensive lineman's face, and the guys were pulling him back. So he definitely has that fire in him. It's about controlling it, and you could see the rest of the game he controlled it. Let's hopefully he doesn't get overly emotional in this game against Ottawa, because yeah, he's probably got a lot to get off his chest, so to speak, in this game.
What I'm hoping I'm seeing in this game out of the Riders is the same kind of play calling that we saw last week. Steve, stop moving the thing around. Jeez.
Well, in the document.
In our document, you're fidgeting.
Oh, I didn't know you guys could see that.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
The play calling in Calgary, once the run game got started, when we've seen this over the last couple of years, is the Riders have abandoned the run game. Once it gets going, they just stop. They did not. They made the run game the focus of that game. And if it's working, they got to do that. And that opens up what we saw from Trevor Harris being as efficient as he was. That's going to open up a lot of things in the middle of the field. I'm hoping that if we get off to a good start running the ball early, we keep running it and running it and running it. There was the one drive, I think it was seven runs in a row for Armstead. Yep. And then the next play was the touchdown pass. So if Mark Mueller can have that kind of success again, that's what I'm looking for, to seeing if we can keep that going. And if it's the pass game that's working right off the bat, don't start running the ball just for the sake of running the ball. Keep doing what's working until, the team starts making adjustments, and then you adjust to that. So
make them stop you. If it's working, do it.
Yeah, the whole time. So that's what I want to see out of this Riders offense. And obviously scoring touchdowns and putting up 37 points a game is pretty nice. So they can keep that going, and Ottawa's getting a little bit beat up, especially on their lines. Take advantage of this game. There's 4 games left. The Riders have 3 at home. So if you can win those 3 games, and one of those is against BC, and the road game against Edmonton, who knows where they're going to be at for that one. I know this team just went 0-6-1, but after the one win against the worst team in the league, I'm looking at the rest of the schedule saying there's a very real possibility they could win out.
Based on someone put out there the strength of schedule, the Riders have the easiest path right now leading into playoffs. So
yeah, I believe that
they have the opportunity to definitely make their future look a lot better than it is a few weeks ago. That's for sure.
All right. Well, with that, it's time to get to our picks for the week. It's time for Piffles Picks.
Oh no! Where's the video?
Oh no, you're not ready.
Piffles Picks.
Well, folks, when you write 52% of the time, you're wrong 48% of the time.
It's busy opening the lines, not getting ready for the video.
And Jeff, sorry you did not win last week. Jeff Fairholm, our guest.
How did Steve win?
Steve went 3-1. All the rest of us went 2-2. So, Steve, you're on mute now.
And even better.
So
that is 3 weeks in a row I've been either the leader or tied for the lead.
And
yes, one of those I was 0-3, but you both were too, so bite me.
And
because we all took the favorite
in last place.
Yeah.
So Jeff actually does have.
It's a lot closer than it was a month ago.
Jeff does have the best
record at
percentage
50%
right now, at 50%. So while the Piffles T-shirt is not in the mail, it might be soon. Okay, Jeff. And Jeff, sorry we missed you at halftime. He came down to our section in Calgary and got a picture with Gove, who was sitting right beside us. We were on the other side of the stadium because we went to go see our Stamps fans that we knew. So we dropped the ball on that. Sorry, Jeff. Anyway, this week we start off with a rematch from last week. Edmonton at Winnipeg. Steve, do you want to take a guess on this one first?
I'm going to go Winnipeg by 5.5, 6.5,
Well, which one? You can't
Pick
just say
one.
2 of them.
6.5,
You can't-
6.5.
I will say 5.5.
It is 4.5.
Oh, I'm taking Winnipeg.
I'm going to take Edmonton.
I hate myself, Winnipeg.
I hate you too.
That's fair. That's fair. Fair shot. Fair shot.
It was right over the plate. Hamilton at BC.
The hell was that?
I'm going to say that BC is favored by 2.5 in this one.
I'm going to go a lot higher. I'm going to say 7.5. BC.
Close. 8.
What?
Even 8. 8.
Hamilton's like the third hottest team in this league right now.
It's in BC,
That's
isn't
interesting.
it?
It's in BC.
It's
yeah.
in BC. Yeah, that
a long trip.
and it's a
Friday
late
night
game.
Yeah.
10:30
I get it.
Eastern. 10:30
I get it.
Eastern.
Sure. Give me Hamilton. They'll cover that.
I hate to say it, the way Bolívar Mitchell's playing, and you give more than a touchdown. Yeah, I think you're right. I'm taking Hamilton too.
I'm going to take BC in this one.
Okay. Riders home to Ottawa. Steve, do you want to guess at this one?
Ooh. Riders by 2.5.
This was the easiest one.
Figured it was close. I'm still taking the Riders.
Greg?
Yeah, I think this is going to be. Give me Riders 7.5. I think the Riders are going to stomp them on this one. I really do. And I
I'm
know
with you
Riders
there.
blowouts are few and far between, but I think this is where they might actually put a game together.
Yep. Give me the green and white on this one easily. And finally, Montreal at Toronto.
Oh, what quick? Well, actually, 1 second. I got to mention. Apparently, there's people that believe with me because in some spots you can get Ottawa at plus 9.5.
Wow.
Have
That's
they
how
won
much it's
literally any
That's how much it's
Rider
moved
games
in one day. That's how much it is moved in one day.
Yikes. See,
Yeah.
one win is all it takes to flip this fan base around.
If I've learned anything in my degenerate gambling phase, riders come in hard.
All right. Final game, Montreal at Toronto. I'll say it's Montreal favored by 3.5.
4.5.
2 points.
That's it, hey?
That's it.
Interesting. Well,
And
the way
actually,
that
most
these-
books it's actually moved to 1.5.
I would
way that
assume
these
they would have
teams are
gone the other
trending-
direction.
Yeah, the way these teams are trending right now, yeah, Montreal had a good game last week against Ottawa, but ever since Cody Fajardo's come back, I mean, I know they lost Tyson Philpott to injury for the year and Austin Mack as well. He hasn't been the same. Cody Fajardo hasn't been the same. They look better with Davis Alexander as their quarterback. I don't know. Weird.
Need some of those
I'll take.
Jesus sprinkled.
Yeah, I'll take Toronto on this one.
You know, I was gonna pick Toronto, but then I thought, you know what? No means no. I'm gonna go with Montreal.
Oh my god! Whoa!
That was perfect.
Fair shot. I do think Toronto wins this one. Hate to say it. So
All
I'm
right.
taking
Well,
Toronto.
there we go. God help us all if Steve is right again.
Still
You
don't
know,
want to
if I go 3-1 or 4-0, you guys could be in a lot of. I could be right there.
You're
the
still
end
going to
of
be
the
in last
season.
place, even
Yeah,
if you go
I'm
4-0.
Right there. I was 10 games back like 3 weeks ago.
Yeah, I'm still ahead of you by like 12, so it doesn't matter.
No, you're not. You're ahead of me like 5.
Yeah. Well, still more than Alex.
4.
You know what? I was making picks for the greater good. So
You know what?
You're well.
Say his name and he appears. He believes in Chris Revie.
And on that note,
that's the easiest way to get him to shut up.
Yeah, because when you play a video, it mutes my mic.
we found a glitch in the matrix. And with that, I think it's time we end this week's episode of the Piffles podcast. We'll be back next week talking about hopefully the Riders beating the Ottawa REDBLACKS, and then huge.
You didn't say their name right once tonight, by the way.
What?
You didn't say their name right once.
Oh, because I haven't streamed. Amy's trying to sleep right now.
Oh, okay, sorry.
REDBLACKS.
There you go.
There. I don't know. This is the end of the show. Piffles Podcast is brought to you by our great friends at Dairy Queen on Elphinstone Street and Sass Drive in Regina. Special thanks, of course, to Kathy Festian of Royal LePage Regina Realty and Churchill Brewing Company for their support. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching on YouTube, SaskTel Max TV on demand. We appreciate that. You know what time it is.
Goes behind your mind.